Hello everyone, and welcome to my Sister Wives Today channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. For years, fans of Sister Wives have watched Janelle Brown portray herself as the calm, collected, pragmatic wife, the one who always seemed to put her head down, manage her own responsibilities, and endure Kody Brown's unpredictable moods without making waves. But beneath that steady surface, there has always been a deeper emotional struggle that few truly understood, until she finally reached her breaking point. And the question that everyone keeps asking is, why did Janelle ultimately reject Kody Brown? What was the main reason that pushed her to finally say enough was enough? And when you look back at the long history of their relationship, the answer becomes painfully clear, because Janelle's rejection wasn't about one single fight or one dramatic explosion. It was the culmination of years of being emotionally neglected, constantly overlooked, and expected to sacrifice her own happiness in order to keep the family peace. And for someone as strong-willed as Janelle, that kind of emotional starvation was unbearable, because while she was always fiercely independent and often content to live her life with minimal need for Kody's validation, deep down she still wanted to feel valued, respected, and seen. And that simply never happened in the way she deserved, because Kody's attention was always skewed, and over the years it became increasingly obvious that his emotional investment was pouring into Robin, leaving Janelle not only on the back burner, but essentially invisible, and that invisibility became her deepest wound, her main struggle, and ultimately the very reason she chose to reject him. Because love cannot survive without connection, and Janelle was tired of being treated like an afterthought in a marriage that was supposed to value her equally. And when you trace the timeline, you can see the warning signs everywhere, whether it was during the family's chaotic moves where Janelle's voice was dismissed in major decisions, during financial disputes where she carried the burden of responsibility while Kody chased impractical dreams, or during family conflicts where her children were neglected in favor of Robin's. Janelle consistently felt like she was giving more than she was receiving, and her patience, though legendary, was not limitless. And the truth is, her emotional struggles were not born from weakness but from strength, because she carried so much weight for so long that eventually her heart could not endure the emptiness of a marriage that failed to nurture her. And fans recall how she often admitted she preferred living alone, how she was fine with her independence, but what they may not have realized was that those admissions were actually cries for freedom, coded acknowledgments that she had been living without a partner for years. And that realization hurt her more than any fight with Kody ever could, because it proved that she wasn't in a marriage anymore. She was in a one-sided arrangement where she was expected to tolerate Kody's mood swings, his favoritism, and his coldness without complaint. And though Janelle is not someone who thrives on drama, she eventually found her voice, and when she began to speak up, her words cut through the silence of years of neglect, calling Kody out for failing their children, for abandoning his responsibilities, and for treating her like she was replaceable. And fans cheered her on because they had seen the slow erosion of her spirit over time. They had seen her struggle to balance her loyalty to the family with her own need for happiness. And they knew this rejection was not an act of cruelty but an act of survival. And in many ways, Janelle's main reason for rejecting Kody was rooted in the very essence of who she is. A woman who values stability, partnership, and respect. And when those things were stripped away from her, she was left with no choice but to choose herself, because the emotional struggles had reached a point where staying would have meant losing herself completely, and she was not willing to do that, not for Kody, not for Robin, and not for the image of plural marriage that no longer reflected reality. And in the end, her rejection of Kody was a rejection of neglect, of disrespect, and of being unseen. And it was also a declaration of independence. A way of saying that she would rather face life alone than spend one more day tied to a man who could not value her worth. And that is why her story resonates so deeply with fans, because it is not just about leaving Kody, it is about the universal truth that everyone deserves to be seen, loved, and respected. And when that doesn't happen, walking away is the most powerful choice you can make. And for Janelle, that choice was long overdue. But it was also the truest expression of her strength, her resilience, and her refusal to let emotional struggles define her life any longer. Janelle's emotional struggles did not appear out of nowhere. They were the result of years of being caught in a cycle where her feelings were minimized, her sacrifices overlooked, and her voice drowned out by Kody's ever-growing obsession with control and favoritism. And when fans look back, it's clear that Janelle spent most of her marriage to Kody walking on an emotional tightrope, trying to balance her natural independence with the expectations of plural marriage. But the heartbreaking truth is that while she was willing to compromise, Kody rarely met her halfway, and that imbalance built up over time until it became the silent storm that fueled her decision to reject him. Because rejection in Janelle's case was not simply about ending a marriage. It was about saying no to a life where her emotional needs would never be met. And fans saw hints of this long before the cameras captured it in full, like when Janelle admitted she didn't always need a romantic husband, suggesting she had already grown accustomed to the absence of intimacy, or when she openly acknowledged her preference for living alone, which was not a boast but a survival mechanism for dealing with years of emotional loneliness. And as much as she tried to downplay it, the cracks were always there, because even the strongest women eventually reach a point where they cannot pretend anymore. And Janelle's breaking point came when she realized that Kody was no longer even trying to maintain their connection, instead pouring his energy, time, and affection into Robyn, leaving Janelle and her children to fend for themselves. And this blatant favoritism became the main trigger behind her rejection, because as a mother, Janelle could endure her own neglect, but watching her children suffer the consequences of Kody's absence was the final straw. And fans will never forget how Janelle confronted him about his treatment of their boys, particularly during the pandemic, when tensions boiled over and Kody made it clear that his loyalty to Robyn's household came before his responsibilities to the rest of his family. And the pain in Janelle's voice during those conversations revealed years of pent-up hurt, because it wasn't just about a disagreement over safety protocols. It was about a husband who had stopped showing up for his wife and children, a man who expected loyalty without offering love in return. And in that moment, Janelle's rejection of Kody became inevitable, because no woman can continue to invest in a relationship where she and her children are treated as second-class citizens. And though some might argue that Janelle always seemed more businesslike in her marriage, the reality is that she wanted a partner too. She wanted respect, and she wanted to feel like her presence mattered. But Kody's inability to give her those things left her facing a choice: continue to suffer silently, or walk away and reclaim her peace. And true to who she has always been, Janelle chose peace, not in a dramatic blaze of anger, but in the quiet, resolute way she has always handled her life. And that choice is what makes her rejection of Kody so powerful, because it was not about revenge, it was not about bitterness, it was about survival, dignity, and the realization that she was worth more than the scraps of affection she was receiving. And that is why fans everywhere continue to applaud her, because in choosing to leave, Janelle showed that strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is the quiet decision to no longer settle for less than you deserve. And in her case, the main reason was clear. She rejected Kody because he had already rejected her long ago, through his actions, his favoritism, and his neglect. And once she saw that truth for what it was, she had no choice but to protect her heart, her family, and her future by walking away.